I learned two things on my first night in North Shore City. First, cities never sleep. Second, some alphas don't ask before they decide you belong to them. My name is Ilias Rowan. I'm an Omega, not the delicate, fragile kind people expect. I learned early that softness invites hunger. In my hometown, Omegas were protected but also watched, measured, married off like solutions to problems. So when I earned a scholarship to North Shore University, I swallowed suppressants like prayers and left without looking back. I thought distance would make me free. I was wrong. The dormitory smelled like detergent, metal, and something sharper. Alpha pheromones layered so thick they made my skin prickle. I kept my head down, dragging my suitcase through the hall until I found room 617. The door was open. Inside, a tall man stood by the window, sunlight cutting across his shoulders. He wore black shirt, black trousers, sleeves rolled up just enough to show veins running along his forearms. He turned, and my suppressants burned in my throat. "Wrong room?" he asked. His voice was calm, controlled, dangerous in the way still water is. "No," I said quickly, forcing my breathing steady. "Ilias Rowan, transfer student." He studied me without shame, eyes dark, slow, as if he were memorizing a weapon. "Riven Hale," he said. "Alpha." Of course he was. He stepped aside and gestured toward the empty bed. "Bottom bunk's yours." That should have been the end of it. Just two roommates assigned by chance. But Riven didn't move away when I passed him. His presence pressed in from all sides, clean, sharp, faintly smoky. My Omega instincts curled inward, confused and alert. I unpacked in silence. He didn't help, didn't talk, just watched. That night I slept badly. By the end of the first week, I noticed the rules. Rule 1, no one touched Riven's things. Rule 2, no one sat on his bed. I learned that fast. Our neighbors tried once. Laughing, loud, drunk. Riven didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. One look from him was enough to empty the room. Yet somehow those rules didn't apply to me. Started small. I fell asleep studying one night, my notes scattered everywhere. I woke up on his bed. Blanket pulled up to my chin. The lamp turned off. Panicked. The next morning I tried to apologize. "You were shaking," Riven said simply. "Didn't want you sleeping cold." I stared at him. "You moved me?" "Yes." Just like that. No explanation. No apology. After that, it kept happening. He took food off my plate without asking. Drank from my glass. Stole my jacket when it rained. Once, without thinking, I tried to hand him a fresh water bottle. He pushed it away. Instead, he took the one I had already used. Our classmates noticed. Whispers followed me down hallways. Curious looks. Knowing smiles. I didn't understand them. Until Eli Mercer, my lab partner, laughed and asked, "So, how long have you two been together?" "Together," I echoed. "With Hale. You know, dating." The word felt wrong in my mouth. "Men can date," Eli said slowly, like he was explaining gravity. "I didn't know," I admitted. He looked at me like I'd confessed I'd never seen the sun. That night I couldn't sleep. I started avoiding Riven. I ate earlier, studied later, took longer routes back to the dorm. I told myself it was normal, just space. Riven didn't agree. He cornered me outside the stairwell, one hand braced beside my head, blocking my escape. The air around him felt heavier, charged. "Why are you running?" he asked quietly. "I'm not," I lied. His eyes darkened. "You smell scared," he said. "And angry. That's new." I swallowed. "I just need boundaries." For a long moment he didn't move. Then he leaned closer, too close, and said, softly, "You don't get to decide those alone." Fear slid down my spine. But underneath it was something worse. Relief. Things changed after that. Riven became careful. Not gentler, just precise. He still touched me, but only when I let him see my hands shaking. He still watched, but now his gaze lingered, heavy, possessive. And then the second alpha arrived. His name was Cashin Vale, transfer student. older, smiling like he had nothing to hide. The first time Cashin spoke to me, Riven stopped smiling forever. Cashin smelled different, warm, inviting, like danger disguised as comfort. "Hello, Omega," Cashin said, eyes flicking briefly to my throat. "You look lost." Before I could answer, Riven's hand settled on my shoulder, firm, claiming. "He's not," Riven said. "He's mine." Cashin laughed softly. "Oh," he said. "You sure about that?" Something cold twisted in my chest. Because for the first time since I came to North Shore, I realized I wasn't standing between freedom and control. I was standing between two alphas, and I didn't know which one would destroy me first. Cashin Vale didn't leave. That was the first problem. The second was the way my body reacted every time he smiled at me. Warmth blooming low in my stomach, instincts stirring despite the suppressants burning bitter at the back of my tongue. And the third, Riven noticed everything. It started with small things. Cashin choosing the seat beside me in lectures even when the hall was half empty. Cashin leaning just a little too close when he spoke, voice warm, teasing. Cashin remembering my name after hearing it once. "Ilias," he'd say, like it belonged to him already. Riven never interrupted. He didn't have to. His presence alone was enough to turn the air sharp. When Cashin laughed, Riven watched. When Cashin touched my arm, Riven's jaw tightened. When Cashin looked at my throat for half a second too long, Riven's hand would appear on my shoulder, my wrist, my lower back. Not rough, not gentle, possessive. I told myself it meant nothing. I told myself alphas were territorial by nature, that it was instinct, not intention. But instincts don't whisper my name at night. The first real crack appeared during a study session. Cashin, me, and two others sat around a table in the library. Riven had said he'd be late. Training, he'd muttered, eyes already distant. Cashin leaned back in his chair, stretching lazily. "You look tired, Omega." "I have a name," I said automatically. He smiled. "I know." His gaze lingered, too long, too open. My skin prickled. "Suppressants wearing off?" he asked softly. My heart stuttered. "That's none of your business." Cashin's smile widened, amused rather than offended. "Relax. If I meant harm, you'd already feel it." That didn't comfort me. When we stood to leave, he walked with me toward the exit. His arm brushed mine, deliberate this time. "You smell different today," he murmured. "Like rain before a storm." I stopped walking. "You shouldn't say things like that." "Why?" he asked. "Because Hale doesn't like it?" My silence was answer enough. Cashin chuckled. "You don't belong to him yet, you know." Before I could respond, a familiar scent cut through the air. Sharp, clean, unmistakable. Riven. He stood a few steps away, eyes dark, posture loose in the way that meant violence was a choice he was actively not making. Cashin looked pleased. "I was just returning him," Cashin said lightly. Riven didn't look at him. He looked at me. "Come here," he said. It wasn't loud. It wasn't a command. My feet moved anyway. The moment I was close, Riven's hand closed around my wrist. Not painful, but unyielding. His thumb pressed against my pulse like he was counting my heartbeats. Cashin tilted his head. "You're gripping him too tight." Riven finally met his eyes. "If you touch him again," Riven said calmly, "I'll break your hand." The library fell silent. Cashin stared for a moment, then laughed. "Interesting," he said. "You're worse than I thought." He walked away whistling. My knees felt weak. That night, Riven didn't speak. He locked the door, drew the curtains, turned the lights low. I sat on the edge of his bed without being told, hands folded tightly in my lap. Minutes passed. Then, "Did he scare you?" Riven asked. I shook my head. That wasn't entirely true. "He smells like an alpha who doesn't respect boundaries," Riven continued. "That kind is dangerous for Omegas." I swallowed. "So are you." Silence. Then Riven crouched in front of me, eyes level with mine. "I don't pretend otherwise," he said. "The difference is, I stop when you tremble." My breath caught. He reached up, slow enough that I could pull away. His knuckles brushed my cheek, featherlight. "You don't know how loudly you scream without sound," he murmured. My throat tightened. "Then why do you keep pushing?" "Because you don't run," he answered. "You freeze. And freezing is permission in this world." I didn't know how to argue with that. The next morning, my suppressants failed. Not completely, but enough. I woke up sweating, scent thick in the air, panic clawing up my chest. I tried to sit up, dizzy and disoriented. Riven was already there. He must have sensed it. He sat on the edge of the bed, back rigid, jaw clenched so tight I thought it might crack. "Ilias," he said quietly, "listen to me." I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. "I'm not touching you," he continued. "Not unless you ask." My instincts screamed at me to lean closer, to seek warmth, safety, grounding. Instead, I curled in on myself. Riven exhaled slowly, like he was holding something feral back. "I'll stay," he said. "That's all." He did. He sat there for hours, reading, answering messages, never once crossing the invisible line. Despite the way his scent thickened, heavy with restraint. When the worst passed, exhaustion hit me like a wave. Before sleep claimed me, I felt Riven's hand rest near mine. Not holding, just there. And for the first time, I wondered, what would happen if I chose him? I didn't get to find out, because that evening, Vale knocked on our door, and smiled like he already knew the answer. Vale never knocked twice. That was how I knew it was him. Riven stood up the moment the knock echoed through the room. His body language shifted, subtle, lethal, like a predator recognizing another one at the edge of its territory. "Stay here," Riven said. I didn't argue. I should have. The door opened. Cashin leaned casually against the frame, dressed like he had all the time in the world. His eyes flicked past Riven, straight to me. "There you are," he said softly. "I was worried." Riven stepped forward, blocking his view completely. "You shouldn't be here," Cashin smiled. "You don't own the hallway. I own what's inside this room." The air changed, not with words, with pheromones. Alpha scent slammed into the space like a physical force. My lungs tightened. My Omega instincts flared awake, raw and panicked, like something inside me had been yanked out of sleep without warning. Cashin's smile widened, sharp at the edges. "Oh," he murmured. "There it is." Riven's voice dropped dangerously low. "Get out." Cashin didn't move. Instead, he took one deliberate step forward. I felt it then, my knees weakening, heat blooming under my skin, a pull so strong it made my vision blur. I clutched the edge of the desk, nails digging into wood. "Stop," I whispered, though I didn't know who I was talking to. Cashin finally looked at me fully. "Your suppressants are failing," he said, not unkindly. "You should have told someone." Riven snapped. His hand slammed into the wall beside Cashin's head, close enough to make the door rattle. "You don't get to comment on his body." Cashin didn't flinch. He just tilted his head, studying Riven with open curiosity. "You're holding him too tightly," Cashin said. "You don't even realize it." Riven laughed, short, humorless. "And you think you're gentler?" Cashin's gaze slid back to me, slow and deliberate. "I think he deserves a choice." That word hit me harder than any pheromone. Choice. Riven went still. For a moment, no one spoke. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure they could hear it. Then Riven turned to me. Not angry, not cold. "There. Ilias," he said quietly. "Do you want him here?" The room spun. Every instinct screamed at me to say no. To cling to the alpha who had stayed, restrained himself, protected me. But another part of me, the part that had been caged my whole life, ached at the question. I swallowed. "I don't know." Cashin exhaled softly, like he'd been expecting that. Riven closed his eyes. When he opened them again, something had changed. "Then he leaves," Riven said. "Because while you're uncertain, I won't let another alpha touch you." Cashin's expression sharpened. "You're afraid he'll choose me." Riven stepped back just enough to show his teeth in a smile that wasn't a smile at all. I'm afraid, he said, that if he chooses you, I'll kill you. Silence fell like a verdict. Cashin studied him for a long moment, then laughed quietly. Fair, he said. Very fair. He looked at me one last time. When you're ready to choose, Cashin said gently, you'll know where to find me. Then he turned and walked away. The door closed. I slid down the wall, legs giving out completely. Riven was there instantly, crouching in front of me, hands hovering, not touching. Breathe, he said. Just breathe. I tried. Tears slipped down my face, uninvited and unstoppable. I didn't want this, I whispered. I didn't want either of you. Riven's jaw clenched. I know. Then why does it feel like my body is betraying me? He didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was rough. Because Omegas are taught to survive, not to choose. And survival instincts don't care about fairness. I looked at him through blurred vision. What if I choose wrong? Riven finally touched me then. 2 fingers under my chin, lifting my face gently. Then I'll still be here, he said. Even if it breaks me. That scared me more than Cashin ever had. That night my heat began. Not full, but close enough to be dangerous. Riven didn't sleep. Neither did I. He stayed on the floor, back against the bed, eyes open, scent locked down tight enough it hurt to breathe. Every time I shifted, his muscles tensed. Around dawn, I whispered his name. Riven. Yes. If I asked you to, would you stop? His answer came instantly. Yes. The honesty in it shattered something inside me. I turned my face into the pillow, shaking. That was when I realized the truth. Cashin wanted me because I was an Omega. Riven wanted me even when it hurt. And knowing that changed everything. Makes a dangerous choice. I woke up choking on my own scent. It was thick, sweet, heavy, unmistakable. Heat. Not the gentle warning kind. The kind that didn't ask permission. My suppressants were gone. Not missing, crushed, dissolved in water on the desk like someone had made a deliberate choice for me. My heart slammed against my ribs. Riven. I didn't finish his name. He was already there. Not touching me. Not looking away either. His eyes were dark, blown wide with restraint. Jaw clenched so hard I could see the muscle twitching. Who came in here? I whispered. Riven's voice was steady, terrifyingly so. Cashin. My stomach dropped. I locked the door, I said weakly. You did, Riven replied. He didn't open it. That was worse. My body burned. Every nerve felt exposed, hypersensitive, like my skin didn't belong to me anymore. I curled in on myself, gasping. Don't come closer, I begged. Please. Riven backed away immediately, pressing himself flat against the far wall like proximity alone might break him. I won't, he said. I swear. The door opened. No knock. No warning. Cashin Vale stepped inside like he owned the air. His gaze locked onto me, pupils dilating instantly. Oh, he murmured. You're beautiful like this. Riven moved. He didn't attack. Not yet. But he placed himself between us, body rigid with barely restrained violence. Leave, Riven said. Cashin's smile faded. You can't handle this alone, Cashin replied. You know that. He'll tear himself apart before touching him. That's my choice, Riven snarled. Cashin's eyes flicked past him to me, softening just a fraction. Is it? He asked gently. Ilias, look at you. You're shaking. I hated that he was right. My instincts screamed at me to reach out to either of them. My Omega side didn't care about morals or promises. Cared about survival. Don't talk to him, Riven snapped. Cashin ignored him. You deserve someone who won't make you suffer just to prove a point, Cashin said. Someone who'll take responsibility. I squeezed my eyes shut. Stop, I whispered. Both alphas went silent. I forced myself to sit up, limbs trembling, heart racing. I'm not an object you argue over, I said hoarsely. And I'm not choosing based on who wants me more. Cashin's expression sharpened. Then what are you choosing? I looked at Riven. He wasn't posturing, wasn't smiling. He looked like a man standing on the edge of something irreversible. I'm choosing, I said slowly. The alpha who stays even when I say no. Cashin's jaw tightened. Riven inhaled sharply, like he hadn't expected that answer. Riven? I continued, voice breaking. I don't know what this makes us. I don't know if I'm ready for everything you feel. Cashin took a step forward. Ilias. No, I snapped, surprising even myself. You want me when I'm vulnerable. When I smell like this. When I can't think straight. Cashin froze. I want him, I said, pointing weakly at Riven. When I'm scared, sick, angry, when I'm nothing special. Silence swallowed the room. Cashin laughed quietly. But there was no humor in it. So that's how it is. Riven didn't gloat, didn't relax. He simply said, leave. Now. Cashin stared at me one last time. Something dark and unresolved burning in his eyes. This isn't over, he said. Instincts don't disappear just because you pretend they will. Then he turned and walked out. The door shut, locked. Riven slid down the wall opposite me, hands shaking for the first time since I'd met him. Ilias, he said hoarsely. I need you to understand something. I looked at him. If you ask me to touch you, he continued, I won't survive stopping. Tears streamed down my face. I know, I whispered. That's why I'm asking you to stay. Not touch. Just stay. He nodded once. And stayed. All night. My heat raged and burned and clawed at me. But Riven never crossed the line. He spoke to me softly, grounded me, breathed through the worst of it with me. By morning, my voice was gone. My strength too. But my choice wasn't. Because somewhere between pain and restraint, fear and trust, I fell in love with the alpha who chose me second to my safety. And I knew Cashin Vale wouldn't forgive that. North Shore City didn't feel the same after my heat. Nothing did. People looked at me longer now. Alphas especially. It was subtle. The way their eyes lingered. The way conversations paused when I walked past. My scent had changed, even with suppressants back in my system. Matured. Marked by survival. Marked by Riven. He never touched my neck. Never claimed me in the way the world expected. But everyone felt him on me anyway. Cashin Vale didn't disappear. He changed tactics. The first warning came from the university administration. Ilias Rowan, the counselor said, fingers steepled. There's been a concern raised about your suppressant compliance. My blood ran cold. I take them every day, I said quickly. You can check. We have, he interrupted. But someone reported irregular pheromone spikes during your last heat. Someone. I didn't have to ask who. You'll be required to attend Omega regulation sessions, the counselor continued. For safety. Safety. That word again. I left the office shaking. Riven was waiting outside. He took one look at my face and went still. He went after you, Riven said flatly. I nodded. Riven didn't shout, didn't curse. He smiled. And that scared me more than anything Cashin had done. The retaliation escalated. My part-time job was suddenly restructured. My class schedule mysteriously conflicted with mandatory Omega sessions. Rumors spread, quiet ones, poisonous ones, that I was unstable, that Riven was exploiting me, that Cashin had tried to help, and I'd chosen violence instead. One night, I found a note slipped under our door. You don't know what you turned down. Riven crushed it in his fist. He wants to force a comparison, Riven said. Make you doubt. It's working, I admitted softly. He looked at me then. Not angry, not possessive. Tired. Then let me be clear, Riven said. If you want out, I won't stop you. My chest tightened. And if I don't? His eyes darkened. Then I'll burn his world down. Cashin made his move 2 days later. I was walking back from the library when a hand closed around my wrist and pulled me into a side corridor. I gasped. Cashin. He looked different. Less amused, more intense, eyes sharp with something close to desperation. Let me explain, he said quickly. before he poisons you against me completely. Let go, I said, trying to pull free. He didn't. Ilias, listen to me, Cashin urged. Riven isn't safe. He's suppressing instincts that don't disappear, they rot. That's not your concern. It is if you're the one he'll lose control over. The words hit something raw in me. Cashin softened his grip immediately. I don't want to hurt you. I want to protect you. By destroying my life? I snapped. His jaw clenched. I gave you options. You took them away. I shot back. You made choices for me. Silence stretched between us. Cashin exhaled slowly. If I step back now, he'll mark you. Fully. And then you won't even know where your instincts end and his begin. My heart pounded. And what if I want that? I whispered. Cashin stared at me. For the first time since I'd met him, he looked defeated. I won't fight you, he said quietly. But I won't disappear either. Before I could respond, a familiar scent crashed into the corridor like a storm. Riven. He didn't speak. He didn't hesitate. He simply placed himself between us and looked at Cashin like a problem he had finally decided to solve. You're done, Riven said. Cashin straightened. Or what? Riven smiled, slow, dangerous. Or I stop playing fair. The air crackled with alpha dominance. So strong it made my vision blur. I stepped forward. Stop, I said. Both of them froze. I took a shaking breath. This ends now. I turned to Cashin. You don't get to protect me by controlling me. Then to Riven. And you don't get to destroy the world for me without asking. Riven's gaze softened immediately. Cashin looked like he'd been punched. I choose Riven, I said clearly. But I choose myself too. Silence. Then Cashin nodded once. Very well, he said. I'll withdraw. Riven didn't relax. You cross his path again, Riven warned. And I won't stop next time. Cashin met his eyes. Understood. He walked away without looking back. This time I believed it was real. That night, Riven sat beside me on the bed. Hands remembered their restraint. You didn't have to stand between us, he said quietly. I did, I replied. Because if I'm going to be with you, it has to be as myself, not as something you're fighting for. Riven nodded slowly. Then when I mark you, he said, voice low and reverent, it'll be because you asked, not because I won. My breath caught. For the first time, the future didn't feel like a threat. Felt like a choice. The night I asked Riven to mark me, it didn't feel dramatic. There were no storms outside. No audience. No alpha dominance flooding the room. Just quiet. Choice has a sound, I learned. It sounds like calm breathing after fear. Like hands that don't shake anymore. We were sitting on the floor of our room, backs against the bed. The lights were off, curtains open just enough to let the city glow spill in. North Shore looked softer from up here, less sharp, less hungry. Riven hadn't touched me in hours. That alone told me how serious he was. I've been thinking, I said quietly. He didn't interrupt. He never did when my voice sounded like this. I spent my whole life reacting, I continued, to rules, to instincts, to what people expected an Omega to be afraid of. Riven's gaze stayed on me, steady. When Cashin tried to take control, I hated it, I said. But when you tried not to, I was terrified too. He exhaled slowly. Because control is familiar, he said. Even when it hurts. I nodded. I turned to face him fully. I don't want familiar anymore. Riven didn't move. Ilias. I'm not asking because I'm weak. I cut in. Or because I need protection. My hands trembled anyway as I placed them on his knees. I'm asking because I choose you. The word hung between us. Choice. Riven closed his eyes. When he opened them again, there was no hunger there. No alpha madness. Only devotion. Say it clearly, he said, voice low. So I never doubt myself. I swallowed. I want you to mark me, I said, as my alpha, because I trust you, because I know you'll stop if I ever say stop. His breath broke. He leaned forward but still didn't touch me. If I do this, he said, The world will read you as mine. You'll lose certain freedoms. People will assume things. I know. You'll feel me, he continued, in ways you can't undo. I already do. Silence. Then slowly, deliberately, Riven reached out. He cupped the back of my neck. Not possessive. Not claiming. Asking. I leaned in. His teeth grazed my skin. The mark wasn't violent. It wasn't rushed. It was warm, deep, steady, like an anchor sinking into something that had been drifting too long. Pain flared briefly, sharp enough to make me gasp. Then, relief. My instincts didn't scream. They sighed. Riven pulled back instantly, forehead pressed to mine, breathing hard like he'd just survived something. Are you okay? He asked. I laughed weakly, tears slipping free. I've never been better. The aftermath was quieter than I expected. No dramatic fallout. No alpha war. Cashin Vale withdrew completely. Transferred universities. Changed cities. Left behind nothing but whispers. I thought I'd feel victorious. Instead, I felt free. One afternoon, weeks later, I received a single message from an unknown number. You chose well. Don't let him forget you're not something he owns. I showed it to Riven. He didn't get angry. He smiled faintly. I won't. Life settled. We moved out of the dorms into a small apartment overlooking the river. I learned to breathe without fear of my own body. Riven learned to let go little by little. He still watched me like I mattered. But he asked now. That made all the difference. One night, as we lay tangled together on the couch, city lights reflecting off the window, he spoke softly. You know, he said, I was raised to believe love meant possession. I traced circles on his arm. And now I think, he said slowly, love is choosing restraint even when instinct begs otherwise. I smiled. And I think, I replied, freedom isn't being alone. It's being safe enough to stay. He kissed my forehead, gentle, reverent, not claiming, not proving, just loving. Sometimes, people ask me what it's like to be an Omega marked by an alpha like Riven Hale. I tell them the truth. It's not about dominance. It's not about surrender. It's about two people standing in a world that tries to decide for them, and choosing each other anyway.